Hi again. Sit back, get a cup of coffee, and let's talk for a few minutes. I want to tell you a short story, and it goes like this. He'd done it again. He was such a fool. The whole town knew he was a fool. Yes, he was rich. Yes, he was a well-known merchant and rancher. He owned so much that everyone knew his name. But no one ever called him by his name. They all called him what I called him when I thought of him, fool. Because he was mean-spirited, he was selfish, self-centered. Everything was always about him. And now he had angered David. David, you know, David who killed Goliath, David, the one that all of the women sang songs about, that David. Let me back up and tell you what happened. See, we live in the south of Judea, and where we live, there isn't any law. There are no police. But there is David and his 600 men. And they keep an eye out on all of us, for all of us. So when we send our shepherds and our sheep out to graze, they protect them. They make sure the animals do not get at the sheep. They make sure that the bandits do not raid our goats, our sheep, our cattle. They protect our men, our crew. Well, they do a good job, and we really appreciate it. And they don't just do it for my husband and my family. They do it for everyone in the area. And it's only natural that for a gift of protection, you would give a gift in trade. That's how things are done. So when David sent 10 of his men to my husband to inquire after his health, as is our way, to say, I hope the year has gone well for you. We have done our best to take care of your crew and your animals. And we're wondering if you could help us out. Whatever you think is fair. Which is a very nice way to say it's payday. And they even waited until it was shearing time. Well, at shearing time, money flows, but so does the alcohol. And my husband, the fool, told them to get lost. He told them, who are you? Who is David? I don't know David, Jesse's son. Anybody can be a runaway slave. Anybody can claim to take care of something. I owe you nothing. Get out of my sight. And he sent them away. Such a fool. David had sent 10, where he could have sent many more. David sent 10 because we don't pay in coin. We pay in wine and grain, and we pay in cattle. We pay in maybe a goat or a few sheep. And it would take 10 men to carry those things on their animals, pack mules, etc. That was actually a very polite thing to do. But my husband, the fool, didn't see it that way. He saw only what they had done for him, and now pretended he knew nothing about it. Deniability. One of our servants overheard and came running to the house and told me what had happened. Oh, I knew that in our culture there is revenge. There is vengeance. And even though our God has said, vengeance is mine, still, David was known for having a bit of a temper and for being sometimes rash. Well, wouldn't anybody, if you worked for someone for a whole year and then your wages were denied you on a technicality? I did not blame David in this instance. it was my husband the fool. So the servant told me what had happened and said, Abigail, you had better fix this quick. So I sent 2 servants ahead on the fastest horses I had and said, you can bet that David is on his way here with more than 10 men. See if you can catch him and slow him down. I'll be there as soon as I can. So I gathered up some dressed sheep. That means they were ready to cook. I gathered up some wine and some grain and some honey and some figs, and I brought them on our pack mules and headed out. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but it was told to me later that David, when his 10 men came back and told him what happened, flew into a bit of a temper and told his 600, that's it, we're going after him, and we will kill him and all of the males in his crew, his family, his camp. That does not surprise me. So he left 200 at his camp and brought 400 men to make my husband the fool pay. Such a fool. Well, I met him on the way, and I immediately got off my donkey and got down in front of him, and I showed him the respect due someone who has authority and who God is leading. I reminded him of the call God had put on his life and the place God had in his future, and how revenge, even though the fool had it coming, would have a cost, and he would pay it, and so would his men. I was not threatening them. I was reminding him, calming him down, helping him to take a second breath. I was trying to follow the proverb I had learned as a little girl, a soft answer turns away wrath. So I listened to what had happened from David's view. I apologized for my husband and let David know normally I would have dealt with it, but I had not seen the men come into town. We came to an agreement, and when he calmed down, I asked that he would remember me. And I thanked him for not taking vengeance on us. Then I went home. I was so tired from that ride. I was dusty and thirsty, and I got home, and there's that fool throwing a huge party because the shearing had been completed. He was so drunk. I knew there was no way for me to talk to him, so I waited until the next morning. He was sober, but he had a hangover. And then I told him everything that had happened because of the decisions he had made. I was careful in how I said it, as you must be with a fool, because fools don't always listen. Do you know what happened? For a brief instant, the fool's brain turned on, and he realized what had almost happened because of his foolishness, his pride and arrogance. And he had a stroke. Maybe it was a heart attack. I'm still not sure. But he was paralyzed, and he laid that way for almost 10 days. And then he died. Now I am a widow. The fool is gone. But my life is not safe. I can be taken as a bride by a raiding party. I can try to be the rich widow in town, and because I am well thought of and they think of me as wise, I may be able to do that. But with no sons, and my husband's covering gone, I could face danger. David heard about it soon and sent men to me and said, "Our master David remembers you, and he has a proposition for you." David asked me to marry him. I don't have to stay in this town with the people I've known all my life. I can go to be with David, who, by the way, is quite handsome. I know the Lord has called him to do something special, and I can be a part of that. I can be by his side no matter what comes. At least I know what he is like. I watched him at his worst and at his best. First rash and temperamental, angry, and then calm, peaceful, and even laughter that we shared. I believe he is a kind man at heart, and it is said he has a heart after God. I can ask for nothing better. My mind was made up, and I married him soon after, and I stuck it out with him. There were some very hard times, but I was there for him. And then he became king. There was that incident with Bathsheba. There were other problems we faced as a family. I think dysfunctional is a good word for us. But one of my stepsons is wonderful. And I tell him when he is around me, I tell him the stories of how not to be a fool. And I teach him the best I can what a fool is and does and says and the cost others pay for the fool and his decisions. Can you guess my stepson's name? I am very proud of him. I am proud to be in his life. He's written a book now, you know, and everybody quotes from it. And I think he even took some of my words and put them in there, because I found several times where he talked about what it means to be a fool. His name is Solomon. The book, Proverbs. Who am I? My name is Abigail. When you have a few minutes, look up the story of Abigail. Think about how brave she had to be, how wise she was, how strategic and how thoughtful in how she made it all smooth out. It reminds me today of customer service. Knowing how to soften when someone is so angry that they find it hard to hear and see. To speak peace and then give wise counsel. That is Abigail. Today, be wary of fools. Look through the book of Proverbs and look at those verses that describe what a fool is, does, and looks like. And then, don't do it. Don't be Nabal, which, by the way, his name, Nabal, meant in Hebrew, fool.